Hi there, James Oldenburg here again. I haven't seen you in a while. I've been busy playing and teaching and studying myself. So I thought I'd just do a little lesson here on some chord extensions or alterations. You all know that, a major chord consists of a root in a 3 and a 5. And a minor chord consists of a root and a flat 3 and a 5. So if we were looking at a D chord, say, if I play the first bit of a D scale, it's going to be D, E, F sharp. So that would be the third note, 1, 2, 3. The fourth would be G. The fifth would be A. Do, re, mi, fa, so. So the first thing I want to talk about is just a term called suspension, and you'll see it in your music as it might just say SUS, and you can either pick two degrees of the scale to suspend on the chord. The 2 degrees would be the second and the fourth. Excuse me, I have a cold. So if I play a D is 1 again. So the second note is an E. So if it said D sus2, I would simply play a D chord. But the key thing about a suspended chord, or a sus chord, which I'll call it from now on, is just there is no third now. So instead of a chord being root 3, 5, it's root 4 or 2. Those are the 2 degrees we can suspend. So I just set it 2. So if I say in the key of D, that would be an E. There is no F sharp. So I get this sound. So it sounds like, to me, I think of it like you're kind of hanging off the edge of a cliff. You're suspending the resolution. It sounds like it wants to go, and now it's settled, right? So that would be the sus2 chord. Again, sounds like a question mark. You may see it sort of erroneously as a sus9, but I mean it's the same note. If you think of an octave, D is 1, D is also 8, so 9 would be the E again. So no big crime there, but it's easiest to think of it as a sus2, and that way you can just take your third, go 1 whole tone lower. So that's 2 frets on the guitar, so 2 frets lower than that would be fret 1, and then open, which we get an E, second note of the scale. So it's a sus2. This is again the major triad, the major D chord. And then a sus4 is a half step away from the third. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, right next to the F sharp. So that would be a G note. So I can get sus4. I can go back to the main chord, which has the third in it, and then the sus2 has no third in it at all. And sometimes you hear them as a little groove, like if you're sitting on a D chord, quite often you can play around with these things as sort of a counter melody maybe to what you're singing. So if I did D, sus4, back to D, sus2. I can do that on any chord. So if I take an A major chord, I'm going to finger it with these 3 fingers. So if I played A major, and if I went a sus2, I would be adding A, B, the note B. So I just take my C sharp off, which is the third, A, B, C sharp. Take it off, and I get sus2. Back to the root, back to the chord, sus4. So you saw the same thing happen. The sus4 was only a half step away from the C sharp, and the sus2 was a whole tone lower, 2 frets lower. Again, any chord you want to do in any range of the instrument, you can play it anywhere you like. If I played a C chord, the third is the E here. Now, you have to be careful about this, because normally when you play an E chord, a C chord, you have 2 E's. You have 1 here and 1 here. So if I don't play that top string, it's still a perfectly fine C chord, because a C chord is just a C, E, and a G. If I get rid of the E, a whole tone lower gives me a D. Now you hear the suspension, the tension being in the middle of the chord. And now it's resolved. If I play a sus4 chord, it would be not the E but the F that I'm adding to the chord, and again, there's no E. There you go. So I get same kind of thing. If I play all three of those chords, I get a C normal, sus2, sus4, and back to C. If I play an A major, same thing. I'll do the same riff. So A, sus2, right to sus4, and back to A major. If I did it on D, I would get D, sus2, sus4, and back to D. So again, you can do it to any chord you want. So that's the suspended sound. So you're getting rid of the third, adding either the 2 to that chord, or you're adding the 4. So you would have root 2-5 in a sus2 chord, or a root 4-5 in a sus4 chord. So if you think about the tune, there's a really beautiful tune called When You Say Nothing at All that was written by Paul Overstreet and Don Schlitz. Many people have recorded it. The first time I heard this tune, it was Alison Krauss that did it. She's got such a lovely voice. I loved the tune immediately when I heard it. Very simple tune. It's 3 chords. It's in the key of D, so it has a D chord in it. D, E, F, G would be the 4 chord, and A would be the 5 chord. All 3 major chords. So what happens in the tune, like if I play the beginning, the intro to the tune, it's very simple. It does an arpeggio, which is just a broken chord, so it goes D. Now there's my D chord. It just goes down from the low string up in order. Now it's not a D chord, it's a D sus2, so I would get rid of my finger and I'd play this. And you have that E ringing. Then it goes to an A sus4. So you notice I'll keep my D on there because that is the sus4 of the A, and I'll just put a bar down here. And that's A sus4. Then it goes to a chord that I call G5 because it's a G chord, but there is no B in it. So you've heard this chord, like if you play a normal G chord, you probably finger it like this. If you're a little bit more old school, old country would be playing a G chord like this. A little more modern approach, guys add a D in the chord, which is nothing foreign to the chord. A G chord is G, B, D. So we have an open, I mean actually all a G chord is G, B, and D. So if I just play those 3 strings, that's a complete G chord. If you look at the regular sort of cowboy chord that people play, they add another G on top, so it's still, nothing's changed. They add a B here, and they add a G here. So again, for a G chord to be a G chord, it has to be G, B, D, no other notes anywhere, otherwise you'd call it something else. So there's your normal G chord. Again, the more modern approach, say more rocky, I would say, like rock tunes, guys do this a lot. You know, and you can see where I would play this chord, it's still a G chord, because all I did was, instead of playing a B open, I played a D, so it's still G, B, D, and I still have this B down here. Now, if I don't play this B, which I quite often don't do in a G chord, simply because it's muddy. It's a low place for the third to hang out. So what I do is I would play this chord. So I call that a G5 because all it's consisting of is a G. I have a G here, I have an open G, I have a G on the first string, I have a D open, and I have another D. So G, A, B, C, D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's why I call it a G5. There is no third. Sometimes you'll see it as G, no third. Same chord. Okay, so call it whatever you like. I call it a G5. It's just simpler to write. If I was writing it, G, no third takes a little bit more space. G5 is pretty easy. So, rock guys know G5 is just your power chord. It's just the G and the fifth. Okay, there it is in a chord. So the chords for a lot of the song is D sus2. Now I go to the A chord and I play A sus4. Notice that D is still there. Now I go to the G5, which still has that D. And then I have A sus4 again. Actually, what it does is go to A chord, which I'll play just flat like that, because I'm not actually going to hit the first string anyway. So I do that, and then he slurs to the D. So it ends up as an A sus4. So here's the intro. So that's really pretty. So it's a way to add other notes to your chord to make it a little bit more interesting, create a little bit more movement. And that's really all that's used in this song, except for one other thing, as far as adding notes to a chord. You've probably all seen a chord saying like something like, C add 9 or G add 9. In this song we have a G add 9. So it's a G chord, GBD, with the 9th note added. So the 9th note, you can think of it like when we talk about chords, we talk about it in thirds. So G, no A, but a B, no C, but a D, that's the 5th, and so on until you get to 9. So it will be G, B, D, F, A. So A is the 9. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So if I play a G chord, I'm going to still play that G5, and the 9th note would be the note A, G, A, same as number 2. So here's the G add 9. Now notice I said add 9, because we didn't actually get rid of anything to make that 9. Now, so this really is a G5 add 9, because there is no third, or you could see G add 9, no third. Because I could play a G add 9, if I did this, the old way to play a G chord, I could play the whole G chord like that and add the 9. But you can see it's a little dense. I don't need all those notes. If I do this, it's very clear that I'm adding one note. So here it is without it. A melody note. If I put the B in here, I could do it here. So now I got B. You can create little melodies that way, counter melodies to your singing. Okay, so what happens is in that is if I play the verse of a song, boy, I shouldn't be singing this, but I'll croak one out. So it goes, it's amazing how you can speak right to my heart. Without saying a word, you can light up the dark. Now right here, try as I may, there's that G add 9. And he does the same thing on the next chord. He goes A add 9. Now that's a very beautiful chord, hey? So that's just like an A chord. I have an A chord here. I have a full A chord. I have A, I have the C sharp in my bar, I have E, so there's my A, C sharp, and E, and I'm adding a B on the 3rd string. And it just gives it a very pretty extension on that chord. I call it an extension because it's past, anything past the 7 really is going to be an extended note of that chord. So we can add a 9, we can add 11, and we can add a 13. At that point, you've added every note of the actual scale to the chord. So, and we can't even play that full chord. Piano players can, but you quite often don't because it just becomes too dense. So you pick and choose what notes you want to add. So in this chord, or in this part of the song, it goes, try as I may, I can never explain. It's beautiful, right? A lot nicer than a plain old A. What I hear, don't say a thing. And that's pretty much what happens in the song. Now, there's a few other sort of rhythmic things that happen. In the chorus, they use these chords, and they use them at will. So sometimes they'll play a normal G, sometimes they'll play the add 9, sometimes, like in the Alison Krauss version, there's 2 guitar players, a mandolin, and I'm not sure if there's keys in that. I think there are keys in that tune as well. So, you know, you have a lot of harmony instruments that can add these notes whenever they like. And if I play an A chord, and a piano player plays the B in there, the add 9, great. It's just adding another colorful note. That sounds already good with the major chords, so there's no issue with clashing. So it's great. It's really a good thing to practice adding these things to your chord. So we're talking about adding a sus2, a sus4, which is a suspended note, or we can add notes which simply are added to the triad itself. So add 9, and that's what happens in this tune. So we have a G add 9, we have also an A add 9 that can be added to the chord. There's a few spots, like I said, rhythmically, where, and there's no other chords in the song, but there's a rhythmic spot in the chorus where it goes, and you can strum this because it's a chorus, build up energy, like the drums come in, and you know it gets bigger at that point. So if you want, instead of finger picking it, you could go, the smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes saying you'll never leave me. The touch of your hand says you'll catch me whenever I fall. Right here goes A, G over B, A over C sharp. So G over B, that's just a G chord, G, B, D. So here's my G chord. I'm still sticking that D in there. So now I just don't play the G as the bass, I play the B in the bass. In an A chord, you have the note C sharp, it's usually here in the chord. All I'm doing now is sticking that in the bass. So that's called a slash chord. You'll see it like A slash C sharp. So anytime you see a slash chord like that with a slash in it, below that there'll be the note that you're playing in the bass, the lowest note you're playing. So you can see the point of that is going A in the bass if I isolate it, then a G chord, G5, with a B in the bass, going to an A chord with a C sharp in the bass. So I get so that's basically the tune. There's one spot in the tune towards the end where they do a little accent. They go, let me see if I see what that part is. So it's in the chorus. The smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes. Truth in your eyes. I don't know what the melody is. It's different. But all that happens is the bass player is going. So he's just playing a line from the D chord, C sharp, B, A. So it's da da da, and then you could play the sus chord there. You can play in different places. You know, so there's a sus chord there. I added an open B here. I could add it there. Now that's not really adding it because I got rid of the C sharp to do that. So that's more like a sus chord, a sus2 chord. So yeah, here it's an add 9 chord. You can hear how that's added one more color. Whereas here, I don't have a C sharp in that chord. Now I could play the C sharp down here. It's tricky. Now I've got, you know, all the notes in there. I've got an A here. I have a C sharp way down here. I have an E here. I also have an E open. And I have a B open, which is the 9. Or the, yeah, so the A, B would be the 9th note. So you could call that, which is the same as the second note, A, B. So you could call that a sus chord if there was no C sharp. So if I played it like this, that's why I said this was a sus chord. Okay, so I hope that, you know, helps you with some of the terminology of chords, and you can experiment with them, all kinds of tunes, and it'll get you closer, I think, to some of the chords if you're thinking, you know, I'm playing this song pretty well, I can sing it, I've got all the chords right, but it doesn't sound quite right. So again, you can hear that this A chord is pretty plain Jane. If I do a sus on it, adds one note. If I do sus4, it adds it the other way. If I do an add 9, I have all of those notes present. I have the B, the A, the C sharp, and the E. So there you go. There's and you know, try that tune when you say nothing at all. It's very, very simple. I can post a chart for it maybe below in the first comment. I'll put a chart there and you can see what I'm talking about. Now, sometimes I've got like the G add 9 in there. You don't always have to do it. You can play a plain old G chord. You can add it wherever you like, wherever you think it sounds good. The other thing is that you want to be careful about the melody when you're singing it. Sometimes it'll clash with the singing, so you have to be careful that it's actually complementary and it's not getting in the way. Okay, there you go. So add 9 chords, sus2, sus4 chords. Have fun. Keep playing, and we'll see you next time. Okay, cheers.